All right, guys. So this is going to be a quick video about my review of the movie Dune. I went and saw it on Saturday. It's starting to rain out here, but anyways, just want to kind of talk about why the movie was all right. Anyways, let me get out of this rain. All right, guys. So I had to come out of the rain. I was going to try to get a nice shot out by the beach, but anyways. So this movie Dune, I went and saw Saturday, and it was okay. I mean, I've been listening to the audiobook, and I like philosophy, so I even have a spider bite venom channel that's what it's called, that deals with philosophy, but the movie, the problems with the movie that I saw was not necessarily so much to do with the story as the way the story was told, because these kind of movies, whether it's Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any type of fantasy type movies, or sci-fi movies, when you tell a story that big, you still have to bring it down to the main characters and what are their motivations and what are their fears and what is it that they really want and what's stopping them from getting it. It's not enough for you to just want to do the right thing, because we're all selfish, and the we're always balancing our selfish desires versus being selfless, which is what makes a movie like Star Wars good. But in this case here in Dune, you have something that's virtuous. I mean, obviously, this character Paul, he wants to make a good name for his family and whatnot. All those things are virtuous, but is that really what he wants? And it's interesting because in the movie, you kind of saw in the beginning where, and you see it in the trailer too, where this dialogue between him and his father, and his father's kind of like, well, you can still go for what you want, and you can still be my son, and I approve of whatever that you want to do. The problem with that is it's not enough. I mean, you can well, at least it wasn't expressed enough in the movie what the son really wanted to do. He just kind of said, well, in a nutshell, I appreciate that, but he really never said really what he wanted, and that's a problem, because in these kind of movies, we're all trying to relate to the main characters, and if the character doesn't want something bad enough, and it doesn't matter if he really wants it bad enough to us, it has to be something that we would want as well, and it's got to be something that really matters. It can't just be I want to make a lot of money, or I want to be save the world or something like that, even though those types of things could be benefits that come out of what you want. It has to be something more personal. So for instance, maybe you want to save a family member, or maybe you want to save a loved one, or maybe it is revenge, but then you got to be careful with that, because there's a price to pay for vengeance. But it has to be something that we want, And if not, then the story kind of falls flat, you know. And I think in this movie, that's what kind of happened. You know, it was pretty big, epic movie. Um, I would say people who are hyping up how epic it was and the scale and how how far the CGI has come towards more and more realistic. You can give all that credit to George Lucas, who was criticized a lot for pioneering a lot of the CGI effects. But if he didn't take those risks back in his movies, you wouldn't have the advancements that you see today. So, but you know, besides the special effects and all that kind of stuff, again, these kind of movies, you have to put that aside. Those are all just aesthetics. Those are all, which aesthetics are important, but they're all the surface elements of a movie. What really counts is that personal motivation of the characters, and then when you shoot a movie this way, where it's kind of melancholy, it's kind of a little too dreamy, too, like one thing I like about Star Wars is that, George Lucas, he just puts the camera on a tripod and shoots. It's almost kind of like in a documentary fashion, but obviously every shot is framed perfectly and so forth. But it's he never relies on a bunch of slow motion and flashbacks. And as a matter of fact, I think I lost count how many flashbacks and slow motion shots were in this movie. And it just takes you out of it, That's why George Lucas doesn't do that in his movies, and thank goodness he doesn't, because when you have stories as big as Dune or as big as Star Wars or something like that, you got to be careful. You can't, there's already enough that you have to deal with trying to understand the story, and you can't just take people out of the movie with constant flashbacks and slow motion, and stuff like that. Another thing I had a problem with the movie is, and I don't think it was so much the fact that you couldn't do it this way. It's just that you have to set things up. Whereas, like, towards the end, you had this, I forget her name, this female character, who kind of, says some wise things, things of wisdom to this, Paul character. But, she's as young as he is, if not younger. And it just doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna do that, because I mean, in the book, if I'm not mistaken, in the book, I think these two young characters, have memories of past life and people who have lived way before them. So they would have that wisdom, but you have to set that up in the movie. You just can't just read that in a book. A lot of people haven't read the book, so when they go into a movie like this and they see some young character giving this kind of wisdom to another young character, it just, see, our subconscious logically says that doesn't make any sense. So, and then it kind of slips into this, I'm the bestest ever type stuff, which is annoying, because, a lot of movies today are especially trying to depict female characters as all knowing and all powerful and all that, doesn't really make any sense. And so, like I said, it's not that in the book, it explains all why maybe she's able to, have that kind of knowledge and wisdom, but in the movie they never set that up, and it's just kind of thrown in there, and it just kind of takes you out of the movie when especially if you're older. Well, not even if you're older, even if you're a younger kid, you wouldn't expect someone your age to tell you something like, face your fears and something like that. Those type of wise words comes from older people, mentors, things like that. And it's almost like, I guess they were trying to make her like a mentor, and that wouldn't make any sense. I think the father was supposed to be the mentor in this movie, which is natural, but yeah, that didn't make any lot of sense. So, and then another thing too with the movie, you one one good thing about Star Wars, and even though some critics have problems with it because they want to be too serious, even the critics understand that that's important to have humor in movies. You gotta, I think there was only one scene where there was some humor in it. If you know, keep the movie too serious and too melancholy for, I think the movie's like 2.5 hours. Your range of emotions, it just gets numb at a certain point. Then it kind of gets kind of boring, kind of bland, and that's not good. Whereas, something like Star Wars, and the reason why I have to compare it to something like Star Wars is because, Star Wars is obviously the biggest, most well-known sci-fi franchise of all time, and probably forever will be, because it uses humor to kind of, as they say, comic relief, to go from having serious emotions to more light humor emotions, and that's important when when you're watching a movie, especially if you want to take family and then be able to pass that movie experience on to the next generation. Younger people want to be able to experience some comic relief, know that things doesn't have to be, life is not that serious all the time. It is serious, but it's not that serious all the time. And then that way, people can kind of enjoy it more. And unfortunately, this movie didn't have that. This movie didn't have, any R2 or R2D2 type characters, or C3PO type characters, or even Jar Jar Banks. A lot of people, didn't like Jar Jar Banks in Star Wars, but I thought he was a cool character because, he was that comic relief that he was, and he was actually crucial in the movie, and in the prequels. So, but if you don't have that comic relief, if you don't have a slight element of goofiness in the movie, then you're just stuck at this, all serious all the time type of numbness that kind of drags the movie along, and then it just becomes kind of forgettable. It's like, who wants to come out of the movie and still be thinking, okay, well, everything I saw, it was serious, and am I supposed to dwell on this movie? Then I'm just going to be in a bad mood all the time. It's not, it's not supposed to be that way. What you need is that comic relief to add contrast to the movie, and unfortunately, it didn't have that. So, those are my thoughts on the movie. All in all, I would give it, maybe 3.5 stars out of 5. Movies like this, I love to see again, but I mean, obviously, I'm not going to see this again. I think seeing it one time is good enough. It's kind of disappointing on one hand because I want more movies like this to exist. So there's not only Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and movies like that I enjoy, that I want to see new movies come out that have that kind of gravitas to them. But and we'll see. I mean, there's supposed to be a part 2 to this movie, so maybe the next movie will. I mean, and that's another thing too, because if you turn this into a trilogy, then that means that the second part will have to be more serious than the first part, and then it's like, are they gonna not add any comic relief, in the movie? Because if if there's no comic relief in the movie coming off of this movie here, it's not going to be really that much to look forward to. And I'm talking about all this stuff subconscious. I'm not saying, on paper it doesn't look like it couldn't work. It just everything looks like it could work on paper. It's just, and that's another thing too. I forgot. This like I know they were trying to introduce a lot of different concepts in the future and why they wouldn't use computers and stuff like that, and instead that part I can understand. But then when you have concepts like, well, you can't use projectile type of weapons like guns and that sort of thing, then it's like it doesn't really make any sense, because it's like, yeah, you can say, well, I'm trying to bring back some of the weapons back from antiquity and stuff like that, like swords and stuff like that. But if you're going to do that, then you need to have I don't know. You need to have maybe a certain class of people who can do that. Like for instance, in Star Wars, obviously they use laser swords, but they have there's only the Jedi can do it, unless you were some super alien like Grievous, General Grievous. But it's like in this movie, it's like, if they're going to actually fight a war, I mean, even the Jedi who could use the laser swords or the lightsabers, they had, it's like Mace Windu said, we're keepers of the peace. We're not soldiers. And for them in Dune, for them to say, well, we're, it's not like there's a certain Jedi class. It's just like, well, if we're all warriors and now we're just using swords again, it doesn't really make sense, because the enemy could just, carpet bomb you and just blow you all to smithereens, which was a scene in the movie, and it's like how do you go from that to back to infantry warfare using swords or daggers or whatever they were using, these kind of weapons, stuff like that takes you out of the movie. It's not, when you watch a movie, your brain is really programmed, to kind of automatically understand what's logical. Anything that doesn't really makes a lot of sense will take you out. That's what I'm trying to say. Any type of things that seem too unlogical would just take you out of the movie. So stuff like that. It's just, then you had the Bene Gesserit, which is a cool idea. They kind of reminded me of the Jedi, where they had this secret knowledge and that sort of thing. The problem, I would say with that is, you don't know their motivation. It almost seems like their motivations are for evil, and if it is, that's fine. But then you had the main character, his mother, part of that. So does that make her evil? I mean, she seemed like in the movie, like she did have a problem with that, because that's because you see it in the trailer where the Bene Gesserit, I guess they tested her son, but it was at the point of death. Like he could have died from the test, and which is evil, and so it just. But I mean, but if you're going to question that, see again, this goes to show you. In the movie, it seems like she doubted, or she questioned, why the Bene Gesserit, the order that she's a part of, why they went that far to to do that to her son, but then she, you know, remained in the order, like she still approved it, and it questions her morality. It questions the morality of people. It's like it's basically saying the ends justify the means. You know, like putting her son's life in danger like that to maybe serve some greater end, for something as casual as a test. It questions your motives. Questions your morality. I should say. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not like the Jedi where they tested something on their Padawans or on the Jedi. Like the Jedi had to go through trials and whatnot. Like there was actually, it wasn't, they were forced to take those tests. It was like if they were a Padawan, obviously the Padawan was, they had blast shields, they couldn't get hurt. But if they were, a Jedi, an apprentice, and ready to face the trials, that would be like them having to go out and maybe, fight a Sith Lord or take out an enemy or something like that. Where it actually means something. Here, if this Paul character would have just died from taking a simple test, what would have been the point in that? It just, stuff like that, it takes you out of the movie because we couldn't really, us as human beings don't really relate that way. So stuff like that, it just kind of gives me a little pause for the movie, for the story overall. Like I said, I don't want to talk too down on the movie because I think movies like this is what we need, like as far as philosophical ideas are concerned. I can't stand these movies out now, especially from the Marvel nonsense, where I'm just the bestest ever. The whole Disney trilogy, had nothing to do with Star Wars. This none of those characters made any sense. Trying to kill off Han Solo and make, Luke Skywalker into a bum. It was just retarded. That's why I don't like none of those movies that are coming out now. This movie was obviously better than that, but still it just fell short as far as storytelling and just the way, I guess this director, Villeneuve or whatever, just made it a little too melancholy. There was no comic relief. He didn't really emphasize, especially at the beginning, what the main character really wanted. That's, so I can relate. It's like Luke Skywalker when he in that famous shot where he looks off into the twin sunset. We know right then and there exactly what he wanted, and it was to get off that planet and venture out into the world. And but his fear was his uncle, his aunt, they didn't want him to, maybe not his aunt so much, but his uncle didn't want him to do that because, he was afraid he was going to be like his father. And right then in that one shot, we know what exactly Luke Skywalker wanted. And we cared because, we want the same thing, especially we're kids or we're somebody his age, we want the same thing. Whereas in this character this character Paul in Dune, we really don't know what he wants. You know, we just knows that he has a destiny, and he kind of, you know, I could see him being more of an Anakin Skywalker, because, you know, but even in Anakin Skywalker's case, like, if you go back to Phantom Menace, we know exactly what Anakin wanted as a 10-year-old boy or 11-year-old boy. We know exactly what he wanted when he told his mother, "I'll be back to come save you, I promise." And that's what he says. And I like the dialogue in Star Wars, because it's always clear. It's always clear. People can bash on how, you know, corny it is, but it's clear. That's why everybody remembers every line. And in a movie like Dune, I don't remember any of the lines, because I don't know, because the lines don't really mean that much. It's like I don't remember what it is that Paul wanted. I know he questions what he wants, you know, if whatever it is. I mean, he basically tells his father, you know, I don't know if I want to follow this calling or whatnot, but he doesn't say why. You know, it's like, you know, his father had to tell him, look, you know, if you don't want to do it, fine. If you know, you're still my son. If you do want to do it, that's fine too. I mean, but that's not enough. You know, it's like, what does he want? You know, that's the difference. That's the difference between him, you know, a character like Chosen One. I love Chosen One characters. You know, people are trying to say that's a trope that's been used too much. No, I think most movies, especially movies this serious, need to have a chosen one. But if you're going to have a chosen one type character, you have to show what it is that he wants. We don't know what he wants. You know, in Anakin Skywalker's case, he wanted to save his mom. He wanted, you know, his mom's still stuck in slavery. Who wouldn't want that? You know, if I was Anakin, I would want the same thing. You know, if I was Paul Atreides, again, I don't know what he wants, so I can't say whether or not I would want the same thing. You know, maybe he wants to just, I don't know, race, you know, dune buggies. I don't know. Or maybe he wants to, you know, join the circus. But even if he wanted to join the circus or you know, race dune buggies, I could relate to that. You know, he could be like telling his father, "Look, Dad, I wanna be a dune buggy racer," or something, you know, something like that. And his dad's like, "Well, okay, well, if that's what you want to be, that's fine, but, you know, our family really needs you right now." I could relate more to that than him just saying, you know, "Okay, you know, I'll try to forget what it is that I want, and then, which I won't. I don't really know what it is, but I'll just try to, you know, do my best and do what's right for the family." It's not enough. It sounds good, you know. Sounds, you know, again, it sounds virtuous, but it's just, I don't know what he wants. That's the point. I don't know what the character wants, and if I don't know what he wants, then it's hard for me to get attached to the character, you know, which is the whole point of these movies. These movies are about getting attached to the character. And then going back to the female character, which I'm kind of glad they only gave her such a short time, because she's, you know, she may be important to the overall story, but just, again, you're not setting her up for the things that her dialogue in the movie is just didn't really make much sense. But even her, like, I don't know what she wants. You know, if this movie and the book, I think the book is about these two characters. If the movie is about these two characters, you know, saving the world, I'm all good for that. I'm all fine for that. But what I really need to know is what they want. That's what I really need to know, because that's the sacrifice. You know, these movies, these stories are about any type of mythological type of story, you have to offer, you have to sacrifice what you want in order to get, whatever it is that you need. And if you look at Luke Skywalker, he wanted to get off the planet, but he wasn't willing to sacrifice what he wanted until he was forced to. When he was forced to, then he, when he lost his aunt and his uncle, when he lost his family, then he was forced to go out on the adventure. In this movie here, we don't know what he wanted. We don't know what the female character wanted. I forget her name. And when they're forced to go on the journey, we don't know what it is that they wanted, what it is that they sacrificed. Like, what is it they sacrificed that they really wanted to do in order to, to go out on the adventure. And that's, it's disappointing because you want to know, you want to know, because that's what, in the back of your mind, you're thinking that's what they really wanted to do, and when you look at Luke Skywalker's character, for example, what he really wanted, not just to get off the planet, but what he really wanted was to find out who his father was. He had no idea what his dad was. Here, this Paul character, he already knew his family. He already knew, who his mother was, knew who his father was. So he didn't have a problem there. So if that's already taken care of for him, then what else does he want? That's what we need to know. We need to know what is it that he wanted to do? What would he rather be doing? Like the first few shots of the movie is showing him studying how to, deal with the sand dunes and, basically learn the trade of his father's business. And it's like, okay, that's like normal, everyday stuff that people do. It's like, you got to get up, you got to go to school, you got to learn to, be a doctor, a lawyer, or work in your dad's business or something like that. That's fine. And if your dad's business is a good, it's a good trade, it's a good thing to do, those are all good things. Like there's really no story there. Whereas if you look in Star Wars, it's like, there's no way Luke Skywalker wanted to join his father's business because his father was doing evil stuff. He was running an empire. So again, there's no contrast in this, really that much of a contrast in this movie. I don't know what he wanted. That's all I'm trying to say. I really don't know what Paul's character wanted. If somebody can tell me that, then feel free to comment that in my comments section. But I don't know what he wanted. That's what I'm trying to say, and I don't know what the female character wanted, because they never said it. She never said it. She sounded like Yoda when she's like, she looks like 18, 19-year-old girl. Doesn't make any sense. It's like, if you look at each character, I can rant for days about this, but it's like, if you look at each character in the Star Wars movies, you know what every character wanted. I'm down to Jar Jar. In this movie here, like you got Duncan Idaho, which I give you I give you credit about Duncan Idaho character. He was, he had a good character moment where, he wanted to, do something to help and in a self-sacrificing way. But even his character, I still don't know what he wanted. It's not like Han Solo, where what he wanted. Han Solo, he just wanted money. We all want money. It's like, and he was willing to forget family, friends, or whatever, just to get money. And his character arc was, at the end, forgetting about all that and actually, making that sacrifice about trying to get the money and help out his friends. that's that's clear. Duncan Idaho's case, we just know he's a soldier. We know he's a warrior. He's a protector of the, I guess the House of Atreides or something like that. I forget, I get these names mixed up. But it's like, and it was still good, but it could even be a little bit better if we knew what Duncan Idaho's motivations. Maybe if you just had one little scene of him would rather be at home with his family or or maybe, I don't know, working for the emperor or something like that, and then he maybe decided to turn against them so he can help out Paul's family, who seem to be the good guys. That would have made it a little bit more deeper. But we didn't get any of that. We got a nice, cool scene of him, sacrificing himself. But again, I don't know what Duncan Idaho's character wanted. I needed to know what was he giving up. What did he give up? I don't know. Same thing with the Reverend Mother. Paul, I guess it's Paul's mother. Or no, not the yeah, Paul's mother. I don't know if she's the Reverend Mother or not, but yeah. Anyway, Lady Jessica, yeah. I don't know what she wanted. I know she wanted to raise a good kid and all that sort of thing, but I don't, what did she give up? If anything, it sounded like her motivations were questionable, or it's like, because in the book she was supposed to have a daughter, not a son, and she goes ahead and I guess at this time they can kind of manipulate the gender of the child, but it's like, so she decides to have a son, which is fine. But why? I mean, well, okay, well, they did kind of say, because they did set that up, because her husband, or I guess she's a concubine, but her I don't know, what do you call them? I guess her owner, right? But they're in love. He wanted a son, so that's fine, right? So I guess that's fine. But in addition to her wanting to please him, what does she, what does she really want? Does she really want a daughter? I don't know. Because I guess she's part of this order, which is, kind of dubious in their morality anyways. Maybe if they would have set that up, maybe if they would have set it up to where, she always had a problem with that. Not just she was doing it just to please her owner, but she was actually, she saw that the Bene Gesserit started off for good, but now they were turning for evil because they were, trying to manipulate everything. I don't know. You got to set that up. You just can't come in a movie saying that. So anyways, that's all I got for you. So go check out the movie and see for yourself and leave some comments in the end. And I'll talk to you next time.